Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Politically Conscious returns after the Renee Good shooting. Federal Chair Jerome Powell fires back at President Trump, warning the White House wants political control over interest rates. Then Trump shocks the world, threatening to take over Greenland, citing Russia and China as looming threats. We ask our experts, is the Federal Reserve under attack, and should Americans be worried about Greenland? If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us live on the Mental Dialogue YouTube page. What's up, everybody? It's your mental activist, Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates, and welcome to Politically Conscious episode 58. We've been doing this thing for a year, y'all, a little over a year at this point. But Happy New Year one more time. I think this is the last episode we can say that on. And so I got my brother Emil Bryant and Leo Smith in here as we tackle various political cuts from around the web and give you a left, right, and middle perspective, basically trying to cut through the chase because we are politically conscious. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. I was about to introduce Emil, but he just got knocked off camera. So Leo, we'll start with you real quick. Tell them who you are, and we're going to get into these cuts and get this show going.
I am Leo Smith, founding and principal at Engaged Futures Group, LLC, which is a government relations and political affairs firm that I've been in for 20 years now. Former Republican National Committee strategist and former political strategist from governors to secretaries of states to some civil rights leaders, and happy to be with Montoya as always.
Wow, you're definitely considered an expert in this field. Emil, another expert in this field. As Emil comes from the right of things, we ask you to come from the left of things, if you will. Tell them who you are politically, specifically, and we're going to get into these cuts.
Hi, Emil Bryant. I am a strong left-leaning independent. My job is to tell the truth and tell it often, because that's what I ask my candidates to do as a political consultant. They don't like to hear it, but I like them to know that the people need the truth. They make better decisions. They make intelligent decisions. Bad news does not get better with time. Tell the truth, tell it early, tell it often.
And I think all the politicians only tell the truth when it's politically expedient. Otherwise, they don't give a damn. But again, that's me being in the middle and moderating this thing. Let's go ahead and get into this very first cut for today and get y'all thoughts on it. And Emil, we'll start with you after this initial cut from Fed Director Jerome Powell.
On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people.
So we are at it, and that was the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, and his job is to oversee the board of governors for the Fed, for the Federal Reserve. What he is facing is an unprecedented attack on his independence as the chair of the Reserve, as well as one of the most powerful independent agencies in the American government. The problem here, from my perspective, is that this is not new. Chairman Powell has been working with Congress specifically on this renovation project for at least 2 years. You can go to their website and look at all the transparency that's transpired before the current events. This is a pretext for the president to try to remove Chairman Powell prior to his May when his term ends. And this is where we have significant problems, in my opinion. The administration wants you to believe this is about the rule of law, about the chairman not necessarily speaking the full truth to the American people in front of Congress. And perhaps there was a contempt of Congress where he may have said something different than what the actual truth was. But the fact of the matter is that the president has said very clearly and unequivocally he wants the Fed to lower interest rates down to as low as 1%, which would be catastrophic for the economy in many ways. But more importantly, that's not the policy for the Fed, not just Chairman Powell, but for the Fed. The Fed's job is to look at inflation and job growth specifically, and through their limited toolkit, and they have several tools in their kit, mind you, but through their limited toolkit of moving interest rates, keep job growth steady and inflation in check. The president does not like that. The Fed has a mandate from Congress not to be political. In other words, you don't want the president or Congress or any politician controlling the tools that the Fed has available to it for political expediency. That's why it's independent. So the threat to its independence through this FBI action, this threat of indictment, takes away the potential for the Fed to maintain its independence and do what's best for the economy. The Fed's been wrong many times. The Fed has used tools probably sometimes in excess, but what the Fed has been is independent. And whether we like it or not, the Fed is probably the best tool we have to keep inflation in check and job growth steady.
Leo, your thoughts on Jerome Powell feeling like he needed to come out publicly and defend himself, or is just a political play because there is something there that's worthy of possibly bringing a suit or indicting him for?
Well, Jerome Powell did two things, and I think Emil gave a great background on all of this and why it's happening. But it is important that Jerome Powell, as chair of Federal Reserve, speak, because most importantly, most people don't know what the Federal Reserve does. And so he's trying to remind the public, look, this is critical. This is not kids' play. This is serious business. Hakeem likes to use the word, they're not serious. No, they're serious. Trump is serious. Hakeem needs to start saying that. Trump is very serious about all the crap he does. So Trump is, he's like that, as a conservative and a former Republican, but still a Republican strategist. I like a lot of the things that Trump does. He's like, you go to a good party, but you're having the daggone hangover at the same time. You get 2 minutes of good stuff, then you get 10 minutes of a hangover. Then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now he comes in and gives you another 30 seconds of good stuff, then 30 seconds of a hangover. That's what Trump does. This is hangover part. Republicans don't like it. Republican legislators don't like it. Conservatives don't like it. Economists don't like it. Conservative or liberal. This is a nonpartisan. Trump is not just being petty. He's got a narcissistic commitment to one thing. He does not want to be seen as doing poorly in the economy. Now, we're going to talk about it later, I'm sure, but there's enough stuff that says, you got some good party stuff happening right here. Why do you have to bring the hangover and attacking the Federal Reserve? He has picked that bone and he will not let it go. He's like a pit bull who has not been trained well by his master.
Wow. Here's what Tucker Carlson had to say about it. And Leo, we'll let you start in your response to what Tucker Carlson had to say about the situation.
Guys, look at me for a second. If you think this is just another routine document subpoena, then you're missing the most disturbing part. Fed Chair Jerome Powell just said this outright. The administration has threatened him with criminal indictment. On the surface, it's about a $2.5 billion renovation of the Federal Reserve's headquarters. And his testimony before Congress, it sounds like protecting taxpayer money, right? That's the other side's argument. If someone spends money wrong, they should be investigated. But here's the chilling reality. The moment you can hang a criminal charge over the person who controls interest rates, from that point on, interest rates stop being a technical decision. They become a political weapon. And if the Fed gets dragged into that game, what do you think happens next? Our currency, our markets, your mortgage. Do they start reacting to tweets or to actual economic data? I'm not saying Powell is right or wrong. I'm just asking this. Once that precedent is accepted, who's next?
So we know, as you said, as you call it, the hangover aspect, but pushing things to the limit to where sometimes it resets precedent. Like, Emil, I've heard you talk about that's been the approach of this administration in a lot of areas, just pushing. I forget, it was a particular term you used or whatever. So Tucker Carlson says, hey, we need to be worried about
the Overton window.
Yeah, say it again.
The Overton window.
The Overton window. Yep, exactly. So Leo, Tucker says we need to be concerned. Again, you call it a hangover, but should we as the public, as people, be concerned, and what could we do in our position? I don't know.
Well, this attack on the Federal Reserve and the desire to be able to manipulate rates based on presidential and political interests, that's not just a hangover. That's the kind of hangover that can kill you. That's liver toxicity. I mean, that is like something you're going to have to live with for a long time. And just imagine, just in case you might have one or two conservatives on here, let's imagine that Kamala Harris had won. And she decided that she wanted to, plus up her economic numbers. Let's say that her crazy progressive liberal socialist ideas, I'm exaggerating here, had taken us into a tailspin of inflation increases, and she's looking for, I got to get
to what we're going through now.
Right. Well,
I'm messing with you.
But let's say that it was, inflation wasn't 7.5 or 7.9 when it was under Biden. Let's say it's at 9. Okay. So if she decides, well, I'm going to lower interest rates, nobody would think that that's appropriate. Conservatives will have a heart attack. That's economic warfare using the American taxpayer and our economic system as a cudgel in a very flippant way. There's no country that ever does stuff like that, and there have been dictators to do it. No country survives that. It is a death kill.
So here's what a representative had to say. And I'm sorry, Emil. I'm sorry. Let me just respond before I play this other cut. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Leo's 100% right. There's especially a modern economy like ours that is driving the world's economy, even though our luster is waning. The American economy is still the number one economy on the planet. It is still the strongest economy of the industrialized nations. And it is still the bellwether for whether or not the world economy is going to take a shift up or down. So having a central bank that responds to the whims of a president who's been elected for 4 years, and this president is a lame duck. He cannot get elected again. So you really have political expediency as the motivator for Fed policy. Now, there's a lot of people who hate the Fed, and for good reason. They're the ones who print the money. However, what's worse than the Fed as it is a Fed controlled by a lame duck president who has a very specific agenda that is not necessarily in the interest of the American people. That's worse. So as much as you hate the Fed, you have to remember, if you hate it, you have to remember that what's worse is a president whose job is to make himself look good in the polls. That is what you don't want. And so to Leo's point, liver toxicity will kill you because there is too much of a good thing in cutting interest rates right now when inflation just was measured at 2.7%. And to my brother, Leo, who, had to take a shot at the Biden administration. Remember, during the Biden administration, inflation was the lowest in all the developed nations in America, even though it was high at 7-8%. So let's be sure that we're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges, because the inflation rate at 2.7% in 2025, in December 2025, reflects a very healthy Fed policy that's trying to compensate for all the junk the administration is doing.
So the only thing I heard out of all of that, Emil, is you're no longer afraid of Trump 2028.
I am still worried about it. No, I am not worried, but I'm not scared.
That's good progress, Montoya. I agree. There's enough to talk about, and I hinted at it. And Montoya, you might want to talk about this a little later, but Trump just gave that economic speech in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm actually going to play a little bit of it. This not much of it.
Do that because there's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested in what he was talking about and what y'all think. And I'm actually going to be playing. It's going to be on the tail end of something, so we'll get into it though. We got a cut coming. But I want to ask, again, along this line, if you're telling me this is liver toxicity that'll kill you, I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Emil, we'll start with you after this.
If my Republican colleagues actually cared about stopping fraud, they would not be defending the one president in modern history who is systematically tearing down the institutions designed to prevent it. The one president in history who has pardoned fraudster after fraudster after fraudster. But Donald Trump didn't just pardon those convicted of fraud. He's gone after the people whose job it is to find fraud. He fired the independent inspector general at the State Department. He fired the independent inspector general of the intelligence community. He removed the acting inspector general at Health and Human Services in the middle of a pandemic as massive emergency funds were going out the door. He pushed out the Defense Department IG. And why has Trump gone after these independent inspectors general? Simple. In each case, they were investigating his or his administration's misconduct and fraud. Donald Trump's.
So that's accurate. Is that accurate what he's saying? I don't know.
That's my congressional representative out here in Virginia. So
newly elected, a special election, right?
Special election because my representative Connolly passed away, and then we had to have a special election. So he's doing a good job, and he said the facts. Now, this is something that I think most people missed. When the president first came in last January, he fired all of the inspectors general across most of the departments. Why is that important? The inspector general in any department, in any organization, federal organization, is supposed to be an independent body that looks into the conduct of that organization. They don't report to anyone but the head of the organization, and their job is to be the voice of reason when things come up. So sometimes it could be fraud, it could be sexual harassment, equal employment opportunity questions and complaints. It could be waste, even if it wasn't intentional, if it's something like that. Their job is to look into all of those sorts of allegations, substantiate them with evidence if they're true, or repudiate them if they are not. Now we have this problem. If you fire all of them and hire new ones, perhaps their loyalty isn't to independence and the rule of law or due process, but rather to their benefactor. Most of the inspectors general across administrations, historically, they'll stay along because the administrations typically respect their independent role. This president fired almost all of them across all of the departments and then installed his own people, many of whom have proven to be loyalists and not looking at the facts as they are and making independent adjudications. Rather, they are doing exactly what the administration bids. And if that's true, which I believe it is because I've seen the evidence, then you have to wonder, are we getting the full story in anything coming out of the administration if it goes through an inspector general office that is no longer considered independent because of how it was installed?
Leo, let me ask you this real quick to kind of lead into this. Has there been a time in our country where a president did what what Emil just said, and what that representative just said, as far as getting rid of so many IGs at once, and as a country, we would have been so alarmed, versus we've accepted it this time around, which in my eyes is having been president one term, he basically said, okay, I learned some lessons in my first 4 years. here are the things that I could do. So let me get rid of all of these inspector generals who are supposed to be independent so that I would have more freedom for my agenda. I don't know that anything's necessarily wrong with that as far as the administration's agenda, but I'm saying I think there was a time where a president, in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, where as a country, a president wouldn't have done it because of how that just does not look objective publicly. I think a lot of presidents would have been concerned with that 30, 40 years ago. Maybe I'm wrong. And for it to be done in a fell sweep, I think that speaks to where we're at as a republic, as citizens. Maybe. I'm just throwing that thought out there. Go ahead, brother.
No, I mean, look, I'm not a historian, but I am well enough educated in American history to know that it has happened. Abraham Lincoln had some controversial filings. George Washington during the Revolutionary War, did some interesting things with generals and that sort of thing. So look, it happens. But yes, look, Trump is doing it with the level of toxicity that is out of this. And Trump does it in a way. These folks, when they made those decisions as presidents, they generally made the decisions with sort of due cause or with a good rational explanation as to why they wanted different leadership. Trump does it because I don't like you and you're not loyal enough. You don't pass the loyalty test. That's how he does it. This is not new with this particular term of his. This is how he operates, period. I mean, you got to remember back during Trump's first term, and I can even bring up, because I know this brother won't mind, one of my former mentees, I don't call him a mentee anymore because the guy's done really well, Michael Singleton, went to Morehouse, lived in Atlanta for quite a while, now has been a CNN commentator. He was the chief of staff in HUD, in Housing and Urban Design. You know why he got fired by Trump during Trump's first term? Simply because Trump took his team members and says, go back and look at the past history of everyone. If they made one comment negative about me, fire them. So this is not new stuff. He's just now in his second term, his last term, he's just doing it, instead of doing it with a little pickaxe, he's doing it with a sledgehammer. And so that's what's happening here. I don't really know what your representative Emil is trying to do, unless they create a law that kind of restores and takes the executive privilege away from the president. I don't think they can do anything, but all they can do is legislate and sue. And by the time they finish those lawsuits, Trump will be out of office, and he'll own Venezuela and Greenland.
This is the problem, Leo, and it's something that the president and his team are very, very good at, right? We've all heard the phrase, possession is 9/10 of the law, but there is an Inspector General Act. So there is already a law on the book that particularly talks about how an Inspector General is brought into service and how they're supposed to be relieved of service, either through cause or normal means. The problem here is that he violated the law a year ago. And that violation has fruit that has continued downstream. So you're not just seeing, yes, everyone serves at the pleasure of the president, meaning he can fire whomever he wants to, however he wants to, within the boundaries of the law. The fact that this president has not followed the law is a problem. But the worst part is, and Montoya, you've heard me say this many, many times, Congress is not doing anything about it. They're tolerating violations of the law because they believe this is part of their agenda. And that's the major problem here, is that Congress isn't doing its constitutional duty to check the president. If he did what he did a year ago and Congress was on its job, it doesn't matter the party. If he violates the law, you're supposed to call him out and make him follow the law. Congress did not do its job. A year later, we're seeing the fruit of that, and that's a major problem.
Okay. Now, thank y'all for those specifics. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I'm hearing this is politics as usual. So it's not too alarming. At least, I mean, it could be alarming based on, in a sense, if you're on a certain side. But
we should be. This is not politics as usual, though. This is the part, okay, I guess I really want to emphasize. Trump fired 19 of 26 federal presidentially appointed inspectors general. No president had done that kind of firing, and he did it illegally. That is not politics as usual. If he had done it by the book, we wouldn't say anything, but he didn't. He fired them summarily. He didn't give for cause. He didn't give notification to Congress. There are procedures in the law specifically to follow that the president did not. and Congress did nothing about it. Congress not doing anything about it is also a problem, and it is not politics as usual. Yes, sometimes the president will get a soft glove, soft hand from his own party in Congress. That's very normal. We're not talking about a soft hand here. We're talking about no hand. That's the difference.
Leo, you agree or disagree? I'm gonna go to the next cut. Just curious.
Well, I mean, there are some things that are bad that you just don't waste your time paying attention to. Trump has already said, "I'm willing to break the law." Okay, he said that. Okay, but he's gonna fight it out in court until it's no longer relevant.
And it can be done about it.
Right.
Wow. Okay, I respect it. But okay, thank you for correction. The meal is not politics as usual. Thank you for the more specifics. I didn't understand it till you gave me the extra details. All right. Unfortunately, this Jerome Powell thing is coming on the heel of the Renee Good shooting. So I definitely wanted to touch bases. We talked about it on the last show. It's still kind of an ongoing thing. So here's just a cut that I saw. Just want to get both of y'all responses and just see what y'all think about it. This is, in the aftermath with some of the videos that have come out and that type of thing. I found this cut right here, so I wanted to get y'all thoughts.
So, Jesse, you just said this woman is in severe crisis. She was boxed in. If you watch the whole video.
No, she was boxed in.
That's what she was boxed in.
No, I said the team was boxed in.
Okay, the team was boxed in by once she moved over, she pulled to the side, and then she actually waves another ICE officer past her, right? So she's in such severe crisis that she can be polite in traffic and say, you go ahead. And then you hear her actually audibly saying, I'm pulling out, right? She signals exactly what she's doing. She starts to move forward, and everyone should go and watch. The New York Times has about 3.5 minutes of footage coming from every angle. And this is what they brought up to President Trump when they were meeting with him last night, when he said, the brave officer, and after he tweeted, it's hard to believe that the officer is alive when he walked away completely unscathed. We can see that on video as well. But the footage contradicts the administration on almost every level of what they've said. Renee Good waving the vehicle by. The officer was to the side of the car when he drew the gun. He leaned over the hood for the first shot. You can see that on the angle too. That he fired 2 more shots at arm's length on a 90-degree angle. And it almost doesn't matter, actually, what she was doing, because she didn't have another weapon. According to DOJ policy, which they should be in compliance with, it says deadly force may not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. Firearms must be discharged at a moving vehicle unless a person is threatening deadly force by other means than the vehicle, and no other means of defense exist, including moving out of the path. He could clearly move out of the path because he did, and that's why he was unscathed in this. I don't know why it wasn't good enough for Secretary Noem or the president or the vice president to say, this is a tragedy. We need to investigate this. And not only do we need to investigate it, we need the FBI to work with local officials on the ground in Minnesota, which apparently they do not want to do. And Governor Walz was talking about that as well. That would have been the responsible thing to do here. And talking as if there is no potential that this officer is at fault with what happened feels like you're getting a little bit ahead of your skis, especially when there is so much footage that contradicts the story that the administration is giving.
So, we say we deal with the propaganda on this show. If you got Fox News saying the president could have just given a more neutral response than the one that he's given, that's definitely a difference if Fox News is correcting the president. And from my perspective, when we talk about propaganda, Leo, we'll start with you. Your thoughts about, again, the shooting and what you saw there, specifically now that we have more footage.
Well, this, from the legal experts that I've really listened to quite well, they did something that commentator just pointed out, and that is the federal law doesn't protect you from that kind of a shooting. I think the right thing to do here would be for the administration and the president to say, we're going to investigate this. And then once that investigation happens, if it needs to happen, in order to save the integrity of the original purpose and intent of ICE itself, not just ICE in its current existence and its current deployment for this political work, but ICE, the immigration customs, that is an important organization. It's too important for the history of our country, for the future and the present, to let one bad apple incident like this. Now, I'm sure there are other ones, but this one is huge probably will end in manslaughter, as it looks like to me, just from my non-legal eyes, that it should. And the president and the administration shouldn't throw away the entire baby and all the bathwater just because of this one bad apple shooter.
Man, I think we saw this coming from my perspective. We got Kenny saying horrible new low. They're lying and fabricating false narratives to justify and validate murdering American citizens. And when I say saw this coming, I understand what you're saying. You know, ICE in a sense being propped up for this bigger picture thing that you find value in, Leo. And I'm not just trying to throw them away, but I'm saying they were propped up in a manner where this was coming. So I don't know that
this isn't. I want to say to you, Montoya, I don't even see. This isn't ICE. ICE is Immigration Customs Enforcement. That Americans across the board believe that we should have customs enforcement. We should have immigration enforcement. Now, have we done it properly? No. But now Trump has now gone overkill, you know? It's sort of like, instead of just saying, okay, I've been letting some linemen throw sand in people's faces, so now I'm just going to since they're not calling it, no rules at all, I'm going to come in and change the nature of football. Trump has changed the nature of what ICE is. What we're seeing here, just like what Trump is not Republican, is not conservative, and what ICE is right now is not ICE. It's thuggery.
Emil, go ahead.
It is thuggery, and Leo's right, but to your point, Montoya, this is fruit from a very dangerous and poisonous tree, and this is the propaganda that you're seeing from the administration's mouth. Propaganda is just another way to say, not only are we lying, we're creating a lie that if you don't believe us, we're going to tell you what truth is on top of the lie. What we say is what you believe, period, dot. And this is dangerous, not because it's never happened before. We have lots of propaganda from lots of administrations, Republican and Democrat, throughout all of American history. The difference here is that we have video evidence akin to, I don't know, say 1991, 1992, Rodney King. You have video evidence that they tell you is not what it is. And this is the problem you're seeing in this administration. They are loyal to a fault, to a line of logic that has nothing to do with what the American people need or should know. And that is where we're seeing this giant failure happen, called the Miss Good happening, Megan Good happening. But there's more to it. Go back to the one big ugly bill and look at how much money went into immigration and customs enforcement. They had a $9.9 billion budget in fiscal 2024. The bill, now law, act, added about $40 billion to that. The entire budget for immigration stuff is about $170 billion. Where is all that money coming from, and where is it all going to? They got almost $50 billion just for brand new detention centers. There is a huge thrust of effort to get immigration and customs enforcement into something it is not. To what Leo said, we all agree the border should be controlled. What we don't agree on is having a police force that is raiding homes, kicking down doors, violating the Fourth Amendment on behalf of the administration with no warrants, with no just cause, with probable cause, with no real actionable information other than we think, therefore we do. This is a problem. The bill, the one big ugly act, set up the potential for what we're seeing now. A well-funded, poorly trained force doing things to American citizens that are completely antithetical to the Constitution.
We got a
I
comment.
don't disagree with their funding. I don't disagree with their funding. I think if you have a priority and you decide that you need to budget it and you make an appropriation to deal with that priority, and it has to be increased because of the intensity of the need, and you want to maximize it, it's okay to increase funding. The problem is the lack of innovation, the lack of intelligence, the lack of sophistication. You don't have to just, go out and do the thuggery in order to increase your ability to police those who have entered here illegally and operating illegally. There are many other innovative ways using technology, et cetera, that we could also be employing that would also cost more money. So I'm okay with the money thing. I'm just not okay with how they're doing it.
We got a comment from Kenny. I don't know exactly what he's saying, but so Leo, if you understand him, I'll let you respond to it. He says,
no, what he's pointing out is the Minnesota
let me say it real quick.
governor.
So anybody, just real quick, let me read it real quick. It says they're investigating, Leo, independent of Minnesota officials. We can't trust the non-existent integrity of this administration. Go ahead and respond to that.
I mean, Minnesota is a blue. I mean, it's blue. Okay, so they have the AG there has made it very clear that they want them out and that they're going to investigate themselves. Of course, the Democrats and lots of conservatives don't trust this administration. So that makes sense. There should be an independent investigation, and it's good that the state of Minnesota, that's responsible, that they should be doing their own investigation.
Okay, good stuff. We got William House saying what happened to going after the criminals. My brother says lame duck. We got another brother says illegals have been offered cash to voluntarily leave. And we got one more from Kenny, and then we'll get to some more, another cut. It says ICE needs to be disbanded. We already had border control under Bush, Clinton, Biden, and Obama. MAGA wants theatrical scenes of violence. And I think it says and cruelty, chasing down women and children, horrendous. So those are some comments. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure y'all are sharing this show. I actually want to put this up real quick. I saw this again. We're a show that talks about propaganda, and I happened to see this meme that I thought was something kind of worthy of discussing and getting y'all perspective on real quick. Let me put this up. It's a meme, so to be expected is going to really be kind of far with it. But I just want to see y'all thoughts on it. Hold on, let me take down his comment so I can read it. Hold on one second. Let's find it. Take his comment down so I can read it. All right, here we go. So we got someone that says, this is just somebody individually. I saw this and I thought it was, hey, let's bring it to the show. It says the woman killed in the encounter with ICE agents is dead because liberals gaslit her into thinking she could do whatever she wanted and call it social justice. So I'm not putting this up to be insensitive. Again, but since we are a show that talks about propaganda, this person puts this meme out is essentially saying, based on maybe I'm surmising, based on some of the propaganda that maybe she received, this woman was involved. Like they're saying there's a history of her being involved in this kind of stuff prior to this situation. Clearly, the actual situation in which she was shot, she was turning away from the ICE agent. So I'm not questioning what we saw on camera, but here's a thought that somebody had, and I was curious at what y'all think about it from a propaganda political perspective. So either one of y'all can kind of jump in and give me a thought on this as I'll take this down.
I'll start.
Go ahead, Leo.
Look, it's a misdemeanor. Again, we've talked about this before on this show. I teach my children to fight the court case later. When you are dealing with the police, comply as much as safety will allow you to comply, right? She didn't comply. There is no debate about that. She did not comply. They asked her to get out of the car, to stop the car. She didn't do it. So that's not even debatable. Even by the video, that's not debatable. The question is that did they have a right to kill her? Absolutely not, because of that. And that the legal code on that has already been stated. So now, do people left and right, do things to gaslight and to animate their political bases, or just Americans in general, so that they go out and do stupid, violent things? Yes, that happens. So nothing new or nothing really brilliant about that comment. It's just the nature is that people get influenced by things happening that is based on ideology.
Amir, your thoughts? I saw you.
The punishment for not complying with the police isn't death. I'm sorry, that's not it.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Leo agree with that. Leo did agree with that, Emil. Right. Go ahead. He did agree with that.
Here's the rub that I see in that commentary. She had people that did not clearly identify themselves as law enforcement. Somebody rushed her car and pulled on her door, which is a very scary thing. And we keep expecting civilians to act like trained professionals in high tense situations. Yes.
Come on, Emil, wait a minute. You don't think that it was obvious that those people were ICE?
Yeah, they were obviously ICE.
I'm telling you, we should all be trained, but we're not. we're going to panic. The trained professionals are the ones with guns on their hip. They're the ones who are supposed to show restraint. They're the ones who are supposed to understand how this navigates. I don't care how much propaganda was filling her head. She did not use her car as a weapon. And if she did not comply, perhaps she was panicking because somebody rushed her car and tried to pull on her door. That is not a crime. Not a crime punishable by death for sure, and certainly to have the expectation that someone can be calm, cool, and collected when people with guns are shooting or pointing guns at you or pulling on your door, that is scary. And when you have no training, I have training because I was in the military. Montoya, you have training because you're military. Leo, you're a wise man with some years behind you. You understand certain things, but not everybody can stay calm, cool, and collected under that kind of duress. They will make mistakes. They shouldn't be punished by death.
Look, I want to make it very clear because there's some comment. Go ahead, Montoya.
Yeah, nobody thinks they should be punished by death. We got a comment. Renee Good,
especially not me.
Borders. Yeah. Renee Good crossed state borders from Missouri to obstruct federal operation. She was ordered to step out of the car. She was choosing to flee while putting people in harm, including the pet dog in the rear seat. So he went all the way to the pet dog with it. But I do agree with this comment that being asked to stop. I understand what you're saying, Emil. Some people will get scared and flee, and that's why the professionals are trained on how to handle it. Clearly, this guy didn't handle it in the way that they are typically trained. I think we can all agree that. Here's why I slightly disagree with the budget thing from you, Leo, just from the standpoint of a lot of that budget, which is typical of a business, goes to the pay. And so we have, police officers and federal officers all their lives that are actually trained to do this. And we got ICE agents getting paid. So a big part of their budget is the pay that they're getting. And they're the least trained of all of our federal officers out there. And so they clash just off of that. I'm just talking about just the human nature of that. Here, these ICE people are getting paid more than us, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And so it kind of leads to this situation. I think you understand that, but I'm just saying the budget is bumped up, typically like most businesses, because of the payroll, how much they chose to pay these newly minted, trained ICE people. At least that's what I think.
My budget for my operation, for my political government relations operation, my budget just went up 200%.
Okay.
I didn't go up 200%. I did hire one or two people, but primarily my increase is because of new technologies I'm using. So I'm saying budgets don't always go up because and I'm saying to you that there are technologies that probably Trump and them can use, but they like the show of the thuggery. See, there are probably technologies, tracking devicing, all kinds of stuff that they could do, social media, AI, they could do to track the people who are criminals, who they claim they want to get out, people who aren't legal, who are not documented citizens. There are a lot of ways they could probably get at this, but they actually like the show.
They chose the show.
So they're doing it, even if they don't even have to do it with this level of thuggery. But it's the show that people want to see.
Right.
At least the MAGA people.
Comments.
Yeah, no, the hardcore MAGAs do, Leo. And this is the problem that I don't think we're really ready to have the conversation of what theatrical thuggery does to a nation, because we know what it does historically, and America seems to be ripe for it again. I don't need to go to Germany. I don't need to go to Italy. I can stay right here in America and go back 60 years and show you exactly what America looks like with theatrical thuggery. I don't need to go outside of these borders to give you a very clear indicator of what happens to a nation when people who believe they're above the law and are called law enforcement act on their ability to do whatever they want to. And this is scary to me because we're in that situation again where the potential's there to go back 60 years in that kind of behavior.
And Emil, for our informed listeners, I mean, the pivot that you're talking about, the distraction that say, hey, look at this, look at Iran, they're killing their citizens. Wait a minute. I know we're not killing them at the degree that Iran is doing it, but you're doing some of the same stuff now with the same intention. Okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah, brother. I saw our brother Shelley Winters call out the president for that as well. Like, oh, you can go protect the Iranian people. But, yeah, I saw him say that on his show. We got Kenny making another comment. He says, non-compliance in the U.S. is not a right to murder people. They want to justify murdering this white lady who is a liberal lesbian, just like they do with black people. ICE thinks they are above the law. And we got my brother Kofi saying, hey, her wife pulled on the door, which locked as she put the shift lever in park. So he's kind of questioning the actual moment. Kenny, I'm just trying to get through these comments. We'll go to another cut. It's not obvious someone without ID covering their face is ICE. Now that ICE has been around, I don't agree with that.
I will never agree with that. You identify yourself as law enforcement. That's the law. And
he did identify himself, Emil. Not only did he identify himself, and not all of them had their faces covered. Come on, guys. This is when you start getting into the Trump arrangements syndrome. These people were identifiable.
Yeah.
Go back and look at the video.
I did look at the video, and I'm not saying they weren't. But again, do you want?
You keep saying it here.
No, I mean, the problem is that you keep wanting. I won't say it. I'll say it this way. There are people who want to blame the victim here, and she had nothing.
But we're not doing it.
No, not blaming the victim.
Yeah, we did not do it on this broadcast.
No, not you two.
I'm just saying. So
I'm saying other people.
But I'm just saying.
We want to give misinformation.
Yeah, because we're risking that by keep highlighting that in this situation when that was clear. They were clearly identified in this.
And here's the dangerous thing.
Yes, we can't add to the propaganda.
Here's the dangerous thing. We cannot become complicit in giving American citizens, especially your loved ones, no matter how informed you think they are, if they're informed enough and emotionally mature enough, Emil, to drive a car, to get the license, etc., they're emotional mature enough to hear you say to them, if you get stopped by the police, comply. Yeah. That is not, see, so some of us got to stop playing this game like, oh yeah, let my kid go out and drive a car. Oh, this person, but oh, well, not everybody's as sophisticated and emotionally responsive as you, Leo. That's BS. I'm sorry.
I agree.
You got to tell people to comply or they're going to keep dying.
No, panic is not a thing. People have car accidents because they panic. People have all sorts of incidents because they panic. To say that panic is not a normal situation when there are armed men looking at and threatening you is irrational. I'm not saying it's the perfect solution, but what I am saying is to say that a person who learned to drive in a test that is mildly stressful is going to react with the same level of competence that they would when they're under attack by what are armed men trying to get in their car is, to me, not the same, not even close. Yes, they should comply, but panic is not something that can be easily controlled by those who are untrained.
So for anybody that's watching this, we're not doing the comply or die thing that's out in the actual extreme of this. That's not what you're watching happen. However, I am questioning this specific moment, and we can't leave out the context of the history and what the wife said in the moment. It's not that the wife says leave, and she just listens to her wife instead of listening to the actual compliance from the officer. I'm not saying she should have died. Do not hear what I'm saying. Anybody watching this, as I'm saying she should have died. It absolutely should not have happened. That guy actually acted on his own accord, and I do think he will get more than manslaughter based on the way police shootings have happened. Like what I've seen legally as a legal studies major, what I've seen in the last 5 to 7 years, I think he'll get more than manslaughter, Leo, by the way, because I remember you highlighted it. May, you could be right, but I think he may get more than manslaughter just based on how some of the other cases recently where officers have gotten more than manslaughter. Not always, but there's been a few cases. I think this case is more egregious than the ones that I've seen officers get more than manslaughter. So I would tend to think he might get more than manslaughter, but it doesn't help when the president is siding, like Emil said earlier, siding when they absolutely should be neutral and say, as every other president would have done, said, wait for the investigation, no matter how bad it looked. So, again, just kind of walking through all of that. Let's get to this next cut. We definitely had to, get involved in that conversation because it's the ongoing stuff right now. But let's kind of move past it for the sake of the conversation and the sake of time. Thank you for all the listeners out there. I'm not getting all y'all comments up, but y'all keep them coming, and I'll get to as many as I can. All right. Here's I think the shock and surprise, but maybe there's something behind this. Let's
policy question. How much money are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way. Please, go ahead, ma'am.
On Greenland, Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. With a nation, look at what happened with Obama, with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't. Go ahead.
On the economic report that came out today, Mr. President, one, can you respond to that? And two,
it was an amazing report. The most amazing thing is government jobs are way down, and yet the unemployment or the employment numbers are very good. We've gotten rid of tremendous numbers of federal government jobs. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And yet the employment numbers are very good. They're really getting better. But now we have all those people to work in the private sector for a lot more money. I think that's one of the very big things. The other thing is at 5.4%. And remember, this is after we had a shutdown. And that shutdown had an impact because the concept of the shutdown, even though it's before, people knew we were going to be shutting down. A lot of bad things happened. And by the way, on January 30th, you may have another shutdown. We'll see what happens. But I think the numbers, Caitlin, were really amazing. Look, to think about 5.4%, nobody thought that. They thought it was going to be 2%. And you know what it is? It's tariffs. And it's also November 5th. We had a great election, a great election. Our country was dead 1.5 years ago. And now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And I hope you guys were impressed. 5.4%. And we haven't even...
Emil, I'm going to start with you. I want to back into this thing and go with the economy and then come back to Greenland, if you will. That's why I played that long cut. So let's back into it because I don't know what the 5.4% would be. So that's why I have you here as the expert. So you explain what he's referencing there. I will tell you just in my, since the last show, which was just a week ago, when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm not finding anywhere where the numbers are being stated overall. I either hear what's wrong or I hear what's right. And obviously the president's going to, as always, big up what he feels like is good. So tell me what the 5.4% is and what you think about just the economy portion, then go to Leo. Then we're going to back into the Greenland conversation.
Sure. So the problem was that his entire statement was full of propaganda. And I mean, you just can't take anything at face value. And if you take the time to research him, his 5 minutes would take you 30 minutes to figure out. The 5.4% is in contrast to President Biden, same time last year, or same part of inflation, right? That's the difference. And as I said to Leo, and I'll say to anybody who asks, inflation under Biden was high. Why was it high? Because the worldwide economy was recovering from the pandemic, and inflation everywhere was high. It was just lowest in the United States. So there is a precedent that the inflation rate was coming down. It was coming down fast, and it was coming down faster than the other industrialized nations. So when the president says there was a 5.4% gap in inflation, that drop is true. But it's not because of something he did specifically. It's because that's where we were trending already. And all of his policies, if anything, slowed down the trend, not sped up the trend toward what we would call normal inflation, which is around 3% or less. To me, that's the big rub, is that the number was right. The context, however, was lacking.
All right, Leo, I'm gonna throw a couple of numbers that I think I found along the way. I hope I get these right. After year end, 500,000 jobs gained, which is pretty low compared to his first administration, because I did recall that Trump had good numbers prior to the pandemic, and I recall that myself on a personal level. But yeah, things have slowed, and the unemployment rate ticked up a little bit, like 4.4% from 4%. Since he started. I'm not saying that's a huge number, but again, he's saying, hey, we're in a great space. Then I see other people saying, hey, things are not better after a year in, especially on job growth. He's definitely was weak in that area. But your thoughts on him saying, you said there's some other good things to point out. So go ahead, brother.
Well, I think you got to drill down a little bit more. He actually even said it. He said, we have basically cut employment in the federal government drastically. So yes, the reason why you have an unemployment increase slightly is because of what he just said. That is the desired outcome. Mm-hmm. But employment in other industries and sectors is actually very strong. That's just the truth. It's the federal government employees that are screaming because, they have been cut. And Trump intended to do that. He admitted it just now. So that's why that number is what it is. Okay, one other little quick number with the tariffs. He again, maybe a year in is too soon, but manufacturing numbers have went down, although a lot of other industry numbers have went up. One of his claims of fame on the campaign trail is that's the area that the tariffs were going to help the most in. And Emil, you've done a great job of explaining this. It takes a long time for these things to come into effect. So maybe it's too soon, but specifically that industry is still going down. While, like you said, Leo, a lot of industries are going up, in a sense, since we do give, we all know we give too much credit to the president on the economy. Like that's just a thing that we make as citizens, mistakes we make. People in economics wouldn't do it this quickly, but it's just what the American public, we want to judge the numbers as quickly as possible. Go ahead, Emil.
So the problem is you're right. In a traditional administration where the president makes some policy changes or some policy tweaks, and it takes time to trickle through the economy. With tariffs, you're seeing a much more immediate effect. So you can say that this economy is really based on the president. However, my caveat is all of those tariff moves that he made last winter and last spring are just now coming to pass today. Those are the things that you're going to see. It took about a year for the ripples to go through the economy. And we have to remember what the president didn't say is that there were lots and lots of work within the economy to absorb the shock of tariffs. Remember, tariffs are paid by American importers, people whose businesses are based in America. So all that money that goes to tariffs, which is going to the federal government, is money they are not deploying in the economy for capital improvements, for labor, for all the things that go into a business running successfully. So when you look at certain statistics, you'll see that lots of small businesses have shuttered this year because of tariffs, right? So you have to look at an entirely different economic picture in order to understand what really happened when the president said we have these numbers. He's using traditional numbers in a non-traditional environment.
I got it. All right, I'm gonna try to pull off two subject matter. If y'all can give me 10 minutes of overtime today, if y'all don't mind. All right, so let's go ahead and get the Greenland thing out. Obviously, talked about that, and so here's a question I'll ask because I think it has to. I'm hoping there's more context than just again what you're getting in the media. Oh, I can't believe he's talking about Greenland again. So if y'all recall when we talked about Venezuela last week, I asked you and Shelley, Emil, about are there concerns with China and Russia and BRICS, right? And so are there valid concerns? I recall earlier this year, you and Shelley, so we'll start with you, Emil, you and Shelley, even Shelley highlighted he didn't like Trump mentioning Greenland in that way. He was like, you didn't talk about it on the campaign trail. Why are you bringing it up now? So it kind of seemed to be an afterthought and it didn't really come up again. Now there's a full press conference saying, hey, not only are we going to do it, but we will take over Greenland. And so are there bigger concerns with Russia and China that maybe we're not abreast of from your perspective that even makes this a viable thought from Trump, Emil?
So our viewer, Kenny, said it very loud and clear. Russia is about 50 miles away from America in the form of Alaska across the Bering Strait. So let's get that argument out of they're in our backyard nonsense. That's crazy, right? So the next part is, where else is Russia? Well, Russia is on the border of several of our allies, considerably Poland, right? Because of where it is in Europe. Okay, so that's not an argument. The Biden administration put a $4 billion deal in for 12 years with Greenland to ensure that the Air Force bases like Thule Air Base in Greenland were plussed up and running successfully. Those bases, all the presidents in the Greenland were actually drawn down earlier in 2025. Drawn down, mind you, forces that are welcome in an economy that gets $500 million from Denmark just to survive. Denmark provides about 20% of Greenland's economy in the form of subsidies and aid. So a $4 billion deal that was struck by the Biden administration for 12 years to plus up or at least maintain the American presence on Greenland goes out the window because the president says we don't defend it if we don't own it. Article 5 of NATO's charter specifically says you attack one, you attack all. And the only time Article 5 was ever used was after 9/11. So when he says we don't defend it like if it's not ours by ownership, by lease, again, that's another half mistruth, half truth, outright lie, however you want to say it, because we have seen what happens when Article 5 is triggered. Greenland has always been here for us. We've used it during World War II. We used it during the Cold War. There's an incredibly robust infrastructure for American forces in Greenland. There's no reason for us to take it over. And the president used all kinds of excuses to say what is not true, because what is true is we are already there and we already have a robust presence.
So if I listen to Emil, Leo, and I'll throw it over to you. If I listen to him, it sounds like, okay, I am watching a president who has a ego that kind of says, hey, I want to take over things. I want to be known as that type of president. So are we literally watching our president play with us, or is Russia and China a real threat to the degree that, and I'm not saying that even if they are a real threat, that it means we should be in Greenland. But I'm saying I hope the president isn't just egotistically saying, hey, Greenland's ours. Because I'm saying, Emil, the way you're painting the picture, it's like we're just doing it for no reason. And I'm not saying you're wrong, Emil. I'm just saying that's how the picture is being painted. Leo, any thoughts on how
No. I think you just outlined it well. I mean, you need a car to get to work. It's very important and critical to you. Someone lends you a car because they got 3. They still got 2 cars they're letting you, and you've been riding that car for a year, and you say, hey, I'm ready to buy this car from you since you don't need it. And the person says, just keep driving it. You're like, wait a minute, but you can take this car from me anytime. No, go up to a woman and just tell her, we don't need the document of getting married. I've been with you for 2 years or 10 years or whatever. Not many women are going to buy that. Not many people would say that they can feel secure and continue to drive their car. Just because Greenland's allowed us to do that now doesn't mean that that's stable. And look, Keone, I love our listeners. I mean, sometimes our listeners will state something that actually proves the point. We purchased Alaska from Russia. We purchased the U.S. Virgin Islands from who? From Denmark. from Denmark. So Denmark sold land to us before. Why wouldn't they do it again? All right.
I would love for them to buy it.
$1.1 billion.
For us to buy it, that's fine if they want to sell it. But we shouldn't be strong arming them to sell it. That's the whole point. That's the whole premise of
don't hate on the brother.
Your NATO argument is that you should just, I can just take it because I'm stronger than you.
He's not. Look, Mill, he has not taken it. I don't believe he's serious about, or the hard way. The hard way doesn't mean he's going to take it. Look, the history of America, we purchase territories. The Louisiana Purchase, okay?
When was the last time we purchased a territory, Leo?
It doesn't matter the last time. When's the last time I had sex? It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that I don't have sex.
If there was ever a time we should have been scared of Greenland falling into the wrong hands, it was during the Cold War when we had.
So let me at least ask this.
This is a good business move by Trump. This is a good business move. We have American interests for Greenland. It's not just because we need a strong forward military base. That is part of it. But there's also mineral issues, there's water, there's trade route. There's all kinds of reasons why it makes sense for us to try and purchase it. Business sense.
I will tell you, for our listeners, y'all take a look at what's called Freedom Cities in Greenland. That is a thing, and you may see a little bit more fidelity into what's going on in Greenland. However, Leo and I disagree. I see 70 years of Cold War precedent behind using Greenland. And oh, by the way, the Greenlandic people would love our presence. They have said over and over again, you don't need to take us over. We welcome you.
Then welcome us with a couple of extra dollars in your pocket.
So let me throw this out real quick, and then I'm going to go to our last cut thing to get us out of here. Last cut. I also saw this. I wish I couldn't find this cut again because I would have played it on the show. But I think the last name is Sarah Mucci. I may be more familiar with him than I am. He used to work for Trump. Now he's kind of online, kind of going against him. But yeah. I think it was him that
Mooch.
Okay.
Yes, Mooch.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So y'all are more familiar with than I am. So I've been trying to follow him recently. So anyway, I think it was him that I saw say this. And I may be wrong on if it was him, but it was highlighting that. I think he highlighted that Russia and China love Trump for this reason, that he won't honor the alliances that we already have with NATO. He won't move within those alliances, which allows them to be more strategic because they love that he interrupts and kind of pesters his allies in a way that, so they love when he makes these type of moves because it doesn't shore up the alliances that we already have with our allies. I'm gonna get one thought on that, then we're gonna go to our last cut and get y'all out of here.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, look, your foreign competitors love it when you have disruption happening, and there's nothing unusual about that.
The thing that I'm concerned about, and I'm not a big fan of American colonialism, neo-colonialism, or any other. My big concern that I think is that it's disingenuous. Like, we're not having the real conversation, the transparent conversation, why this is important. You don't want Russia and China on your border? Okay, fine. But Cuba's been there for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. I mean, come on, man. Like, the conversation piece is just disingenuous from jump. And we need to be more real with the American people. If you want to take it, say you want to take it because it's oil, it's rare earth minerals. By the way, anybody who says the word rare earths, from today, if we had control of Greenland today, it would take 3 to 5 years to refine what's in the ground, pull it out of the ground, refine it, and turn it into something useful. 3 to 5 years. On the short side, 3 years. On the long side, 5 years. There are projects in America right now that are pulling rare earth minerals out of the ground that are still under development. It takes time. So when anyone says rare earths, do not listen to them because that is disingenuous. The rare earth activity happening in America will solve most of our problems in about 3 years.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Just because I'm making money in one revenue center doesn't mean I should try and get money out of another revenue center. I don't really understand the business.
Very capitalistic of you.
Yeah, I do. Now, I am a capitalist. There's no doubt about that. I believe in capitalism. So look, and here the other thing, Emil, is that you got to acknowledge that you can hate the game. and I understand that you hate the game of Trump, and I don't like all of his game, but it is important to acknowledge the game, even if you don't agree with the game. Now, for you to say that, oh, well, Cuba, well, then Trump's game actually has a plan for Cuba. Isn't that clear with Venezuela and stopping oil from going to Cuba? He wants to break that system.
You can do anything if you violate the law. But the whole point of a constitution, though, is to keep things without, like, if one person can say, I'm taking over a country, and it happens, we don't need a constitution anymore. And that's, and Montoya knows from day one, I've been about due process and the rule of law.
So yeah, let me jump in and get to this last cut.
I want to identify with the American people.
Let me jump in. Get us to the last cut. So absolutely, Emil, your lean for the law, I think, actually has you biased to the economic perspective that Leo, who's going to be biased to the economics. So I think it's just kind of a natural give and take of why y'all disagree, because y'all both have, in a sense, natural bias leanings. You for a letter of the law, Emil. I'm not calling right or wrong. It just makes sense that y'all would have this issue over this issue.
That's fair. I'm not gonna.
What I will say, Emil, what I will say, Leo is right about, though, is just acknowledging the game. So you can acknowledge the game. You may have to disagree with it, but the acknowledging that, hey, I'm doing well over here, I may go for resources over here. And we happen to live in the country with the biggest military in the world, so we have the freedom just to sit on this video and talk about it. In other countries, doing that type of stuff would be a lot more dangerous. That's just calling it what it is. Again, that's my layman's perspective. Y'all both are the experts. Here's the last cut. I thought this was interesting, so I want to show this, get one thought, and we're out of here. Thank y'all for watching today. Definitely share this show if y'all understand what we're doing. We're trying to weed through the propaganda, but this is not even about propaganda. I just thought this was interesting and wanted to give you guys an opportunity to comment on this great comment, on this great video.
Are there any black men running for the United States Senate in 2026? Are there? Yes, there's 12 of them. And I'm going to do something I don't think I've ever done on this page before. I'm going to try to cover 12 candidates in under 3 minutes. Now, I already covered the black women who are running for United States Senate in 2026. You can go and check out that video after you watch this one. All right, deep breath. Here we go. It's New Jersey. Current U.S. Senator Cory Booker is running for re-election. Now, Senator Booker made history in 2013 when he became the first black person New Jersey ever sent to the U.S. Senate. And he's held that seat ever since. We need him to stay in the Senate, y'all. Next, we go to the Midwest. In Illinois, 4 men are running to fill the seat of retiring Democratic U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. Sean Brown, former Cook County prosecutor who's focused on healthcare, gun safety, free public college. Robert Palmer, Chicago Public Schools teacher and baseball coach who's running on reparations, youth mentorship, and affordable housing. Next, you have Jump Shepard, a former teacher and astronomer pushing to end the pink tax and eliminate student debt. Christopher Swan, a nonprofit leader who's focused on better wages, immigrant rights, LGBTQ plus protections, and limiting billionaire power. And in the state of Kansas, Eric Murray, a Kansas City developer and entrepreneur who's focused on economic growth and expanding opportunities for working families. He's running to replace current Republican Senator Roger Marshall. All right, let's go down south. In Arkansas, Ethan Dunbar is a 30-year veteran and mayor of Louisville. He's focused on rural jobs, protecting hospitals, and strong public schools, and he's running to replace current Republican U.S. Senator Tom Cotton. In the state of Mississippi, 2 candidates. Scott Colomb is a district attorney known for criminal justice reform and rebuilding trust with communities. And you have Ty Pinkins, who's running as an independent. He's a 20-plus-year Army veteran and voting rights advocate focused on rural communities. Both of them are running to replace current Republican U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. In the state of South Carolina, you have Brandon Brown, who's a 5th-generation South Carolinian and educator focused on stronger schools and community investment. He's running to replace current Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. In the state of Alabama, you have Dakari Lariat, who's an entrepreneur who's running on a platform of more jobs, education access, and affordable health care. Republican U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville isn't running for re-election, so this is an open race. And finally, in the upper South, the state of Kentucky, Charles Booker. He's a former state rep from Louisville. And during his time as state rep, he was the youngest black lawmaker in Kentucky at the time. And he was also the first black major party Senate nominee in state history back in 2022. He's running on healthcare, climate action, and criminal justice reform. And he's running to replace current Republican U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, who is retiring. Arkansas, Kansas, Kentucky, Alabama, They've never had a black U.S. senator. And Mississippi hasn't had a black senator since Reconstruction. That's over 140 years ago. Which race should I take a deeper dive into first? Let me know in the comments. And as always, are there any black men running for the United States Senate in 2026? Are there? Yes, there's 12 of them. And I'm going to do something.
That was Brother Dijon Campbell brought us that. I thought it was something, again, if we're going to be the politically conscious show, Leo, I would love to get maybe one of your candidate friends on here one day just to kind of, I want to start asking some of the candidates why they're in politics, just for us to, in a sense, become conscious of what people's thought processes are. Again, if we're going to raise the consciousness of our people, if you will. But if y'all will, just give me some thoughts. You know, y'all might know some of those guys, or some of those things sounded pretty interesting. But I thought it was pretty cool just to be more aware of who's out there trying to, make waves, if you will. He says certain states, Kentucky, Alabama, vying to have a black senator for the first time and things of that nature. Leo, I'll let you go, and Emil, I'll let you end it. So Leo, just give me a thought on that, and Emil, you can end this out today. You muted real quick, brother. Unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Yep.
There you go, Leo.
If you live in those areas, then where those gentlemen are being running their races, then it's important to go and find out more about them. Don't just take the headlines about why they're running. Go and dig deeper. What's their position on trans girls, aka boys, in sports? Ask. I'm not saying my position on that. You should ask what there is, see if it aligns with you and whether or not you think it's good for your state or your local municipality. What's what's actually their position on education reform? Do they have any ideas that make sense for you? Do they believe in school choice? Do they believe in vouchers? Do they believe in taking advantage of the education sovereignty initiative that is actually happening in the federal government right now? Do they know these things, that you can take money that is taxpayer money and use it to go to a private school? Do they know that? Do they know? I just helped out with getting a kid back into school, a black kid, and through various scholarship government organizations, granting organizations. Your candidates need to know that stuff so they can help their constituents. If you don't know how to ask those questions, know what questions to ask, and then go and make sure that they can represent you well. Because just because they're black doesn't mean that they know these things.
Emil, closes out, brother. Thank y'all for a great show today. You're on mute as well, brother.
You always hear me talk about informed and intelligent decisions. And so this is the part where I ask our people, especially those who are affected by these races, to read platforms, read their websites, get familiar with where they're going. I don't care so much about hot button politics. What I care is that you know for whom you vote, because we are getting very, very good at voting a ticket and not a person. So we need to be better at understanding who represents us, what they're running for and from, so we can make informed and intelligent decisions. Otherwise, we run the risk of hiring people to represent us whose job is to rubber stamp an administration. And I refuse to be party to that ever again. I used to vote down ticket a lot of times because it was easier. I got educated. I was a young man when I did that. As I got older and smarter, I began to read more, and I began to see that individuals represent me and not parties.
All right, good stuff. All right, Leo, I'm going to challenge you to get us somebody on here. You always get away with, I wanted to challenge you on the job numbers. I'm not the job numbers, but the economic numbers. But we don't have time. So we'll go ahead and get you guys out of here. And thank y'all for a great show. For everybody watching, thank y'all for all the comments. We try to get most of them at least put up if we don't talk about all of them. So y'all keep watching, keep sharing. Let's grow this show. We're just trying to raise the consciousness. We're not telling you which way to vote. We're just trying to give you more information so that you are more informed, because at the end of the day, we always talk about this day against us, if you will, and that's more of a class issue than a race issue. And the reality of that is they don't want you as informed. So hopefully we're informing you so that you can be a thorn in the side of those who are politically against the rest of the American people. We're helping you raise that consciousness. That's our goal. So thank y'all.
All we ask is that you think.
There it is.
Toya.
Hey, real quick. If you're in Atlanta, Friday we got the Mental Dialogue live experience and after party. We're supporting the brother. We're doing a cash mob over at Bakari's Pizza. So if you're in Atlanta, join us Friday night, 7 p.m. at Urban Grind, and the after party 10 p.m. at Bakari's Pizza. We're cash mobbing to support this black-owned pizza shop, trying to keep it black-owned. Like that's how bad last year was. Brother had an accident. He's keeping it afloat. Let's go influx him and cash mob him with support if you're in Atlanta on Friday night. All right, holla at y'all.
Peace.
Take care, guys.